Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for our virtual Rebel Recharge lecture. We are pleased so many of you have chosen to be with us as we have shifted our traditional face-to-face program format to a virtual format in an effort to continue to inform and engage our alumni community in these current times. My name is Stacy Purcell. I'm the president of the UNLV Alumni Association, and it is my honor to personally welcome each of you here today. I would also like to give special recognition and welcome to Blake Douglas, Interim Associate Vice President for Alumni Engagement and Interim Executive Director of the UNLV Alumni Association. In addition, I would like to thank Renee Rivera-Gelfi, our Coordinator for Programs and Events, for producing today's virtual lecture. Our next virtual Rebel Recharge is scheduled for January 15th in 2021. The topic is Navigating Nutrition in a World of Fake News and Bad Advice, presented by UNLV's Director of Didactic Programming in Nutrition and Dietetics, Samantha Coogan. Please visit our website, engage.unlv/events, for more information on upcoming topics and events. Our goal is to continue to grow this program and create opportunities to engage with our alumni, faculty, staff, students, and community members. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today's program, Kass Moore, a two-time graduate from UNLV and a career and professional development specialist in the Career Services Office. She is responsible for guiding and supporting students and alumni through their career and professional development. Her research interests include professional and career development and how to increase equity and inclusion in hiring and recruitment practices. As a Rebel and first-generation college student, Kass is committed to serving the UNLV community and improving equity and inclusion on campus. In the future, Kass plans to further her education by completing her PhD in educational leadership. Kass enjoys the great outdoors, including hiking, and she loves spending time with her dog and two cats. And something really exciting, she is getting married next Tuesday in a very intimate forest wedding. Congratulations to you, Kass. And we're thrilled to have you with us today to share your research and perspectives for career planning amidst a global pandemic. Please join me in welcoming Kass Moore.
Thank you, Stacy. That was an incredible introduction. I'm excited to be here with you all today to, of course, cover the topic you've all been waiting for, which is career planning amidst a global pandemic. This is a hot topic, right? We've been in this global pandemic for quite a few months now, and not too much is changing. Of course, the world is sort of opening up, but we have a lot of shifts in the demand of what sort of jobs people are looking for, what jobs are available. We're in a remote working environment, so welcome to my home. I'm at home right now working remotely, as you know, I mentioned. And so this is a topic that is really fun to explore, but also a topic that can tend to be a little bit challenging, right? We're in this time where there's a lot of change, a lot of unknown and uncertainty. And so hopefully after today's presentation, you have a little more confidence moving forward in your career planning amidst a global pandemic. So without further ado, let's get started. So there's a lot of numbers on the screen, lots of words, bear with me, but this is kind of what's going on in the world around us today. There are statistics everywhere, right? You see a new article every single day about what's happening to the economy, what's happening to the job market, who's hiring in the community, what's going on in Vegas, right? We hear all these things. And so I just wanted to sort of start off today by giving a little bit of information about what I found in my research. So recent research estimates that about 32% of workers who were left unemployed by COVID-19 will not return to their previous jobs. Now, the reason I picked out this statistic and this data set is because this is important and critical as you start to move forward in your career development, right? Wherever you are, maybe you've been in a career or an industry for a really long time, and now you're sort of sitting back and saying, do I have to look for a different job or do I have to look at a different career? And so keep that in mind as we go through this conversation, is that a lot of the work that was left closed or where people were left unemployed, those jobs aren't available anymore. And so you have to start looking to other opportunities in your career development. For every 10 coronavirus-induced layoffs, only 3 new jobs have been created, right? And so that's that 10-to-3 ratio, or 3-to-10. And that's important just to know that while there is a surge in hiring in a lot of areas, it's not 1-to-1, right? We didn't lose a job and gain another. And so this is just, again, very important and critical to start off this conversation so you know what's going on in the job market and hiring practices. As of October 2nd, and I know that was a while ago and feels like forever ago, but these are some highlights, right? The unemployment rate has indeed declined, which is important, right? We need to make sure that there are jobs available. But while there has been a decline, it is important to keep in mind that it's still higher than in February 2020, right? Pre-COVID-19, which was at 4.4%. And so I kind of use these statistics to just guide a very realistic lens at the career search these days, is that these are the statistics and the information sets that are impacting the way you should be looking at your career and job search. However, there have been notable job gains, right, in areas of leisure, hospitality, retail, healthcare, and business services. And so those are some of the areas that you might start to look at, especially in the spaces that have gotten a handle on how to utilize the public health standards successfully to reinstate their businesses. And so keep that in mind, right? Las Vegas, we've opened up a lot of other things. For example, I have a close personal friend who graduated from UNLV and works for Spiegel World Productions. She's a production manager, and she had been laid off, right, from March, or furloughed, that is, from March until just this last month. So things are opening up, right? Las Vegas is trying to resume business, but safely. And so keep those things in mind as well. Something else to keep in mind is that if you work in the area of government or education, employment in these areas have declined. So those are just stats, unfortunately, kind of challenging stats, but to start off our conversation about what COVID-19 has done in relation to the job market. This reallocation shock is a term that we use in career education and sort of job market research to say that just because there are layoffs in one industry doesn't mean that all those job opportunities or that economy has gone away. Instead, a lot of employers are forcing to shift their consumer demand and business practices, which leads to a shift in the kind of jobs that are available, which is why you see that the unemployment rate is decreasing. Industries that were directly impacted by COVID-19, as many of you know, was hospitality, entertainment, and travel. And again, this is just to set the tone so that I can help guide you in your career planning amidst this pandemic. So where are there new jobs? This is a good place to start, right? What are the things that are up and coming? What are the things that are popular right now? Of course, many of us know delivery, right? Especially Amazon delivery. We are all kind of subject to that Amazon black hole where you see something and you get it in 2 days. So this is up and coming and growing. Amazon is hiring employees left and right, and in a very sustainable way. So I encourage you, if you're interested in working for corporations similar to Amazon, to look into what they're doing. And they're doing a lot for not only the economy, but also the environment. Secondly, e-commerce, right? So just shopping online, it's up and coming and growing. A fad these days, right, especially amidst this pandemic, is something known as TikTok, right? The application where people are posting videos and it's really fun, but this is actually where people are launching their businesses. So if you are a personal or independent entrepreneur, or have always wanted to be, areas like Etsy, Poshmark, eBay, and so on are great places to start your e-commerce business. And then grocery, right? And it's not necessarily just grocery store employees where you are a customer service representative, but also the corporate offices, people who work in the public health standards departments for these organizations. Those are where you're seeing a lot of influx in positions. Some employment has disappeared, but of course, different kinds of jobs replaced those positions. But remember to keep in mind that it hasn't been one for one, which is why we have the larger unemployment rate than in February. There are more deliveries, more takeout, more ordering of food online. So what does this mean? Well, it means a lot of work is shifting to a new digital era. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation today, I'm working from home. It's both a blessing and a curse, I would say, right? I miss my coworkers so much, but businesses are recognizing the power of remote work, right? You don't need to send a person, especially in like maybe sales or entrepreneurship, on airplanes around the world to do in-person meetings. You can do them from the comfort of your own home or from your own business. And so this is increasing the electronic communication that's going on. It's saving money for businesses. And these patterns are more likely to stay permanent, right? And I say this because it has been, upwards of 7-8 months since this all sort of started, and it's still working. Workers are still being productive, and this is leading to a domino effect, right? Especially among those heavily impacted industries. So let's talk about that domino effect. As employees are shifting to remote work, this remote work or this influx in people who aren't driving to work has produced a domino effect in several areas. First, work commute has decreased, right, which lessens the demand on public transportation and automobiles. So those are areas that are being impacted too. Think about it. Car sales, right? If you previously worked at a dealership or you've always wanted to work for car sales, that's an area that's being impacted. So you have to think about, it's not just entertainment, hospitality, and so on. It's the domino affected industries as well. Another thing to think about, right? Construction, and the construction industry is being impacted because there's less space needs as a lot of people are working remotely and from home. So as business shifts to an online model, automation becomes more favorable, right? So technology, using systems instead of people. So what happens to these low-wage workers employed in these industries? And this is important because, again, it's this domino effect. The domino effect, unfortunately, is leading to inequities in hiring practices. As Stacey mentioned in my introduction, I'm very passionate about equity and inclusion in the hiring process in the US, and there are a lot of laws and policies and procedures set in place to make sure this doesn't happen, but the pandemic has put these already underserved and unrepresented communities at a disadvantage, right? It's clearly going to make these differences and changes in hiring practices a lot more acute. And so this is something to keep in mind as well. Now, I don't want to just say, well, this is what's going on, good luck, right? That's not why I was asked to be here today. I'm here to help educate you on what can you do despite all that I've shared today. And so there are 4 major things that I'm going to be sharing with you today. And this is not a comprehensive list, right? There's so many things that we could be doing during this time, but 4 things that I'm going to be covering today. So number 1, stay active during COVID-19. Maybe you've been laid off. Maybe you're in a job and you're feeling complacent. Maybe you're in the middle of a second degree that you've been working on, or you're just kind of figuring out where you're fitting. It's very important to stay active during this time, and I'll give you some tips and tricks on ways to stay active during COVID-19. Secondly, we're going to talk about building and rebuilding your professional brand. We talked about this digital era. It's going to be a digital brand. So I'll talk to you all about how to increase and improve your digital online brand. Thirdly, we want to learn to job search during these unprecedented times. So the way that we look at the job market and the way that we look at the job search process has to shift just a bit, right? We have virtual interviews as opposed to the in-person interviews. We have a lot less in-person networking to identify potential positions. So we'll talk about ways to network and leverage opportunities in this virtual environment. And then lastly, we'll talk about your support services, right? As Stacey mentioned, I work in the Career Services Office, so I'll be giving you a lot of resources that our alum can use as it relates to career services, and then give you my contact information and let you know that you have support in me as a career and professional development specialist. So let's talk about staying active during COVID-19. I've done a couple of different presentations on this very topic. It is so important not to lose momentum, but I understand that we're going to have weeks, days, and moments where we feel really, really low. This could be professionally, personally, and so on. And so it's important that despite all that's going on in the world, we stay active. And here are some of the ways to do so. Number 1, expand and nurture your network. So leverage LinkedIn, and we'll really be diving into LinkedIn in the next few slides. But LinkedIn, for example, has over 500 million users, most of which are recruiters and people who could potentially hire you, right? Recruiters are actually using this social network to find and source talent. One local company who does a really great job of leveraging LinkedIn is a company known as Barton Associates. They're a sales sort of company that recruit healthcare professionals for industries and hospitals. And so what Barton does is they use LinkedIn, they message recent graduates from UNLV, upcoming graduates, and they say, hey, we're looking for some talent. Let's find you, as opposed to the traditional job search, which would be you looking for jobs. LinkedIn allows them to look for you as well. Some other ways that you can use and leverage LinkedIn is not only to find jobs or be found for jobs, you can share your ideas. You can attract and engage a target audience, specifically recruiters. You can post ideas, you can share articles, you can share other content. You know, for example, I shared this particular event, the Rebel Recharge, on my LinkedIn profile to share with my friends and my colleagues and say, hey, I'm going to be here. Please join me. I'm sharing some tips and tricks about, going through your job search in a pandemic. And that can show a future employer of mine that, hey, she is familiar with online webinar creation and she's able to connect in a virtual environment. You can do the same, right? If you have engaged in a work project, post about it online. If you've been to a networking event and it was really fun for you, post about that on your LinkedIn. And make every effort during this time to use video conference to maintain and nurture those relationships. So let's say, 6 months ago, you met somebody at an in-person networking event and you say, I really need to reconnect with them. One of the best to do that is using your LinkedIn, right? Send them a message and say, hey, do you want to meet over Zoom for virtual coffee and conversation? And we can talk about what's been going on in your life during this pandemic. And that will help nurture those relationships, both personal and professional. As I mentioned, right, need a coffee break, make that virtual. For people that maybe you feel like you're disconnected to, maybe they are professors or classmates from your previous undergraduate or graduate program at UNLV, and you're like, wow, I really need to chat with them, but it's not super safe right now, or I don't feel comfortable going and meeting up in person, or they moved to DC and they live across the country. Make that a virtual conversation, and then you'll find yourself very comfortable and confident in a virtual environment. So then when you do get that video or virtual or phone interview, you feel confident working through this virtual environment, right? It's hard to talk to a screen. So the more familiar you get yourself with this process, the easier and more comfortable it becomes. Tip number 2, focus on your professional development. Right, Stacey had mentioned that the next Rebel Recharge is all about nutrition during a pandemic and during unprecedented times and things of that nature. Now is a great time to focus on your health and your wellness and your eating habits, but also your professional development habits. Do I post on my LinkedIn? Have I looked at my resume in the last few years? Do I know how to write a professional email, right? Focus on your professional and personal development during this time. So spend some time self-reflecting. Now is a really ideal time, especially and unfortunately, if you've been laid off, to really commit some head time or some mind time to figuring out what you want to do, right? What are your interests? What are you really great at? What are some of your skills gaps, right? So maybe what are you not super great at? Maybe you're in a space where technology just is not your friend. Now is the time to make technology your friend. As I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, the digital remote era is up and coming and growing. And so it's very important to adapt to these times by upskilling and learning the technologies and learning the softwares that people are using at their businesses. E-learning. E-learning is a really great way to kind of upskill and to learn more about things that you're unfamiliar with. So for example, for me during this time, I said, I feel like it's going to be really critical for me to know how to build my own flyers, marketing materials, and so on, right? Education has been impacted by the economy and there have been a lot of layoffs. And a lot of those layoffs tend to be in those less critical jobs, right? So a content manager or a marketing manager, those may be the ones that go first, those creative teams. And so I said, I should upskill in this area. I should learn how to use Adobe Photoshop. I should learn how to use softwares and systems like Canva. And I've done that. I'm not the best, I must admit, but I'm working on it and I'm growing. And I'm trying to see some of these areas that I can grow so that if I am ever to be laid off or I'm looking for other opportunities, I have these skills in my back pocket. And you can do the same. Attend webinars and workshops similar to this, right? You're hopefully learning something through this experience today. There's also something called LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn Learning is a really great tool to upskill, and so I definitely recommend checking that out. Also prioritize maybe some online courses that you've been putting off. So maybe you said, oh, I've always wanted to get a paralegal certificate, but I just haven't had the time. Well, maybe now you have the time, or maybe you don't, but it's important to prioritize some of this education so that you can have those skills necessary to move forward in your career development. Practice phone and video interviews and or conversations, right? If you, as I mentioned, are somebody uncomfortable in this virtual environment or feel like you need to hone some of those technological skills, practice these experiences. Reach out to a colleague, a friend, a previous classmate, a fellow alum, and say, hey, let's talk over the phone. Let's practice how we can actively engage in this virtual platform and situation. Don't neglect the power of practicing, and that's also why Career Services is here. So at the end of the presentation today, I'll share all of the resources we have to offer, but one of those things is mock interviewing. We can help you practice and become more comfortable in your interview processes. Tip number 3, refine your remote routine. So maybe your job has sent you home, or maybe you're in an education program right now. You decided to pursue a master's degree or a certificate program, and you're struggling to figure out, how do I do work-life balance from home or in a remote environment? Well, the first step is refining your routine. So we're embrace and optimize remote work. Although telecommuting has increased steadily before the pandemic, it's increasing exponentially now. So it's not necessarily an option anymore. It's a little bit of a necessity. Stay productive and develop work from home skills, right? I easily could go every hour up to my bed and just take a quick nap right between appointments and just say, oh, I'm just gonna take a few seconds, but that's not gonna help me be productive, right? And so instead, what I've done is I've implemented some work from home skills. And those include creating a dedicated space for my work. So I do live in kind of a smaller home. So I happen to be in my living room right now, but this is my corner. I'm actually cornered in to this living room space. And so I've been able to set this space for myself and for my work. And I've also set ground rules with family members, scheduled some breaks, and just tried to stay consistent. And that's really what's going to help you improve and stay productive in your work from home or your job search from home routine. And stay positive. I know you've heard this so much, and I won't really hone in on it too much, but it's so incredibly important to maintain a positive outlook and lean into your passions during this time. In time, this too shall pass. And so that's why I'm here today, to hopefully grow your confidence and grow your positivity in this pandemic. Okay, so let's take a breath. Let's take a moment. Right before this presentation, my colleagues actually told me that I am a little bit too calm about my upcoming wedding. Well, that's because calmness is very important during this pandemic, right? There's no sense getting too worked up over something that has been foreseen to be going on for a really long time in the future. So let's take a moment. Let's take, a few deep breaths before we go into our next topic. I can see Stacy taking some breaths. I appreciate you participating with me. And while participants, I can't see you today, and I really wish we could be in person, I hope you're taking a second and just taking a few deep breaths. Hopefully my voice is calming. Maybe it's irritating. We'll see. And let's take a moment and then transition. So we're going to transition. And we're going to talk about building and rebuilding your professional brand. And as I mentioned, this is going to be heavily digital. So buckle your seatbelts and let's get rocking and rolling. The first thing that I'm going to ask you all do is take a second and say, when was the last time I looked at my resume? If it was in the last month, kudos to you, because that's not common. About 80% of people who are looking for a job haven't touched their resume in years, right? And that's a long time. Resumes can very easily and quickly become outdated. One of my colleagues on this call actually asked me recently to review their resume and say, hey, I'm not looking for jobs right now, but I know my resume is out of touch. Can you help me with that? Now is a great time to revisit your materials and say, have I looked at my resume? Do I know what a cover letter is? And is it up to date based on the industry I'm looking to pursue and based on current standards? So some things, right? Some little tidbits to keep in mind and think about. Number one, an objective statement on a resume is outdated. So that's got to go. Number two, the references available upon request at that bottom of your resume, that's outdated too. So that's got to go. And there are so many other things that are outdated. So what I recommend to you all as participants today is visiting our UNLV Career Toolkit. The UNLV Career Toolkit is a really great resource for you to take a look at and to see what do current and updated resumes look like, right? What are industries and employers looking for on a resume? And then this career toolkit will give you a lot of information as well as samples to help guide your resume and building. Secondly, think about the resources that you have available to you. So we're lucky today to be joined by somebody from the Career Center because all of these career resources are free. And I'm going to repeat that. They're free as a UNLV student and alumni, which is just amazing. A lot of institutions across the nation have a deadline, right? They say 6 months after graduation, no more career services, or we charge you a fee, or good luck. And so you all as UNLV alumni, maybe current students, past students, all of that, you have a free resource. So UNLV Career Services offers something called Virtual Document Review. So what you have to do to get here is go to our website, unlv.edu/career services, and visit our alumni tab, and you can access all of these different resources and services. And I'm going to post that link in just a few slides so you have very easy access to it. Actually, Renee did. So thank you so much, Renee, for posting that link. That's where you can find all of these. So the virtual document review process. Maybe you haven't taken a look at your resume in a while, or you want your cover letter to be reviewed before you submit it for an upcoming job. All you have to do is RSVP for that process, and a career coach will take a look at your materials within about 3 to 5 business days, provide some feedback, and then it's, very, very quick. If you feel like you maybe need a little bit more of an intimate consultation, I recommend scheduling a one-on-one with a career coach like myself. Maybe we'll see each other in the future. And we can go over your materials, talk about your job search, review your cover letter, and so on. So please remember to readdress and revisit your professional documents, including your resume and cover letter, to make you feel a lot more confident and prepared for this upcoming career or job search, or for some of you, maybe a little bit of a crisis. Second, leverage and update your LinkedIn. So I know I've said LinkedIn a few times, and for some of you, you may just be confused as to what LinkedIn even is. And so that's what this slide is dedicated to do, is to share with you what LinkedIn is. So first and foremost, LinkedIn is essentially a professional Facebook. With your LinkedIn, you have the opportunity to connect with professionals. You have the opportunity to show off your headshot or professional photo, to summarize who you are as a professional with your profile summary, to have your living resume or your CV online for future employers to see. You can actually share recommendations. So for example, if after this I say, I'm going to connect with Stacy on LinkedIn, I'm going to send her a connection request, but I also want to send a recommendation and say, you were an incredible host today. You're so lively and bubbly, and anyone would be lucky to work with Stacy in the future. I can actually send that recommendation over, and it'll be publicized on her profile so employers can see Stacy is well liked, and that helps them understand how she would be a good employee in the future. And the same is you can receive recommendations. So if Stacy said, wow, I just loved Kass's presentation today and I must talk about it, she could send me a recommendation and say, Kass is an incredible presenter. She presented at X, Y, and Z. You'd be honored to have her as a member on your team, right? This is a way where your future employer can see you're well-liked, but you also like people. It's a cyclical process, and it kind of sometimes can replace that reference requirement. And so I definitely recommend using LinkedIn for one of those reasons as well. Something else you can do on LinkedIn is post, right? Very similar to Facebook, right? You can make an original post, but this is all going to be about your accomplishments and your professional career. So, right, I mentioned if you attend a webinar and you really enjoyed it, share that link to the webinar and say, I learned a lot. Thank you so much for the hosting party. Maybe share accomplishments. You received Employee of the Month at your job, or you got an award or a grant for the work that you're doing in the nonprofit world, right? Share all of these things so that employers can see you're active, you're professional, and you're well accomplished. And then lastly, you can utilize LinkedIn to connect. So, right, we have a lot less in-person interactions these days. And of course, it's to maintain public health standards and make sure that everyone's safe. But we're losing that connection, right? We're missing that networking piece. And LinkedIn provides a very safe and comfortable online space to message with your colleagues, to reach out to recruiters and say, hey, I don't know if you happen to be on a hiring freeze, but I've always wanted to work at Google. What do your opportunities look like? Or, hey, I met you at the Rebel Recharge. I think it would be really great to connect. I just really want to work on my professional profile. Would you mind connecting with me on LinkedIn, right? You can kind of message people and stay connected during this remote and unprecedented time that we're experiencing. It's time for another breath, right? It's a lot. It's a lot of content. It's a lot of, well, I have to do all of these things. I can promise you that it's just one step at a time, right? So maybe you said on a few slides ago, you were like, I haven't ever built a LinkedIn. So just put that on your to-do list, set it aside, and you'll get to it when you get to it. But it's one step at a time, right? One breath at a time, one job at a time, one interview at a time. Take your time. Give yourself a comfortable pace, and that's hopefully what I'm helping you all do today is just think about some of the things that you need to do, and then we'll make a list and we'll do them. So with that in mind, I'm going to talk a little bit about job searching during COVID-19. So it's not that traditional walk into an establishment, hand them your resume and say, I want a job. It's not simple like going to an in-person career fair, hitting it off with that recruiter and them offering you a job on the spot or an interview on the spot. It's not as simple as being at a networking event with your fellow alumni and saying, hey, you work at this company. And then they say, oh yeah, I have a job. And you give them your resume and you're connected. It's not as simple as those in-person times. And so what have the shifts been and how can we job search during COVID-19? Well, tip number one, I love a good tip. So tip number one is approach your job search with flexibility, right? Rather than a rigid set of goals. I think about one really great example here. Right at the tip top of the pandemic, I met with an alumni or an alumna, and she was working in entertainment. And of course, she was furloughed, and she said, I need to work. This is so important for me that I keep upskilling, that I keep in the working world, but I don't know where to look for a job. I worked in, events and entertainment my entire career. So this might be a time for you to approach your job search with a little more flexibility. What are some other jobs, careers, or industries that are adjacent or very similar to the work that I used to enjoy, have been doing, or am very good at? And so think about current and future impacts on the industry you're pursuing and kind of engage in your job search with more flexibility. Now, by this, I mean that person that I was working with worked in entertainment and hospitality. And for her, she said, I don't know anything else. And I said, well, let's just talk through some of the things you like. What is your favorite part about working in entertainment? And she said, actually, one of my favorite parts about the event sort of management piece of what I do is creating unique and innovative social media posts and marketing materials for those events. And I said, well, it sounds like you might want to be a content manager, or it sounds like you'd be really great in marketing or creative direction or something that has that creative piece. And she said, I have literally never thought about working in marketing. We looked around, right? We looked at some public relations positions. We looked at some marketing specialist positions. And within about a month, she was able to secure a job as a public relations specialist at a company, and she's loving it, right? And so you have to approach the job search with flexibility to maybe find a new passion that you were unfamiliar with before. But also keep in mind that areas have been impacted, and we're not sure how much longer it's going to be until they're back up at 100%. And so maybe for the time being, you have to think about some adjacent careers, positions, or opportunities that could keep you upskilling, keep you making money, and open back up for those jobs that you were previously doing. And so keep that in mind, is flexibility rather than a rigid set of goals. Number 2 is actually all about social media. So this is my favorite because I spend way too much time on social media, and maybe you're one of those people too, or maybe you're not, and congratulations, because my screen time is at an all-time high during COVID. But improve your social media presence. So some statistics, I love a good number, but it really helps you put into perspective what is going on in the world. So about 95% of firms will research a candidate online before moving them forward. And this is exponentially increased during COVID because, right, the only way for you to research a future candidate or a potential candidate is going online, because that's the safest thing to do right now. Your digital brand is what you control for others to see, right? No one else, the Twitter, the Instagram companies, the Facebook companies, they're not in control about what you post. You are, right? And so right now is a great time to create and update your LinkedIn profile, as I mentioned several times today, or creating a digital portfolio for examples of your work. So if you work in a creative space, or you work in a space where you need to really validate your accomplishments, you might want to create a digital space for somebody to visit and say, oh, these are that person's photography skills, or these are their program or event production skills, and kind of have that very professional space for people to visit in their research about you. And then control your digital shadow. So social media, right? You may have a Facebook, an Instagram, a Twitter, so on. You want to make sure that you go back and edit the past if there's anything unprofessional on these platforms. We've all been in college. We've all done that. Oh, we did that in college and maybe we shouldn't have done that or posted that. Well, go back, edit the past. Make sure that you have a very professional brand moving forward because employers are looking. Improve the present, right? So maybe post a positive quote every day on your Instagram profile or on Facebook. You know, with the most recent election, maybe there's a lot of things going on and posts going on there. Improve the present. Only focus on the positive. Try to be as professional as you can be on online spaces. And prepare for the future, right? The way that you work through your social media now and make sure that it's professional, you won't have to go back and edit the past for the rest of your professional career. Instead, you can do it now and then just keep it positive moving forward. Tip number 3, keep applying. Don't stop. I know it's hard to receive those rejection emails. I have received a lot of rejection emails, but you need to maintain momentum. You need to apply to jobs that match your skills, your experience, and your qualifications. Employers might be taking some time to answer your questions or might be taking time to review your materials. Give them some time, right? The job search process takes a long time anyway, but everyone is transitioning during this time. Maybe for you, it's important to set a set of daily application goals, right? To hold yourself accountable, and then you can reward yourself, right? So when we do something each day that maybe we hate doing, so for example, cleaning my cat's litter box, I hate doing it, but I reward myself when I do it because that's what helps maintain that momentum to ensure that I'm always doing that. Maybe I get a cookie, maybe I grab another coffee that day, right? But it's important to reward yourself as you go through this application process or as you look for that next opportunity. Maybe you're not looking for a job right away, but you're just looking to see what's out there. So set a daily goal of sending one message on LinkedIn to a professional per day, right? Set goals, hold yourself accountable, and then reward yourself because you're still doing it, right? You're maintaining that momentum. You're making sure that employers are seeing and hearing you. Tip number 4 is do regular reevaluations. So a few slides ago, we talked all about, self-reflection and kind of figuring out, am I applying to the right jobs? Do I know what's next for me? To optimize your search, it's very important to reevaluate your cover letter and your resume and make sure that you're applying to jobs that you're qualified for. So ask yourself some questions. Are the jobs I'm applying for a good fit for my skills? Or are you just sending resumes to things because it was a job and you need a job? Is your resume enticing to employers based on their job posting? So this is critical because the first thing that happens to your resume when you submit it for a job online is it's actually scanned, right? It's scanned by something known as the applicant tracking software. And this is a fancy name for what it's looking for is for your resume to have a lot of matches to the job description. So something you need to do before you submit your resume for potential jobs is you need to go through and try to match some of the words from the job description directly onto your resume. And that will ensure that your resume is not only enticing to the system, but then the employer knows you're connected to this opportunity. And then further, does your cover letter expand on your relevant experiences as it pertains to each job, right? Are you working through a cover letter for each individual job, or are you just kind of sending out a general cover letter, right? It's very important to be specific and intentional when you're building your documents. So do some regular reevaluations, maybe do some breathing exercises like we've done through this presentation, and just take some time to really prepare yourself as the most confident and qualified candidate that you can. I'm not going to go into this too deeply because I've said it, I think, 8 times so far in this presentation, but tailor your materials. Make sure that you look good and sound good on paper. Review the job posting, apply those relevant keywords. And if you're feeling lost in this process, that's why career services exists, right? If you say, this is the job I want, these are my resumes, and this is my resume, and this is my cover letter, what can I do to make myself look good on paper so I get that interview? We can work with you, right? We can say, here's the job posting, here are your materials. These are some of the things that you can do to connect yourself to this opportunity and just really ensure that you're a very qualified candidate on paper. Address any requirements, skills, and qualities that are required in the job posting, and you'll be set, right? The employer can very easily see that you're a qualified candidate, but the system can then also see it too. So it's very important to tailor your resume and cover letter. And then supplement your income if that's necessary, right? So I don't know your personal situation or circumstance. Most recently, at the top of the pandemic, my partner was laid off, and it was incredibly important to supplement their income. So what they decided to do is retail and coffee until things in their area started to kind of shift. What my partner specifically ended up doing was enlisting in the Air Force, and so she leaves very soon. But if you need to supplement your income during this time while you wait for the ideal opportunity or the job that you're really looking for, the career that you're most passionate about, do that, right? Do so to keep your skills sharp, to make sure that you still have communication skills, and that also you have that income during this unprecedented time. So maybe consider a part-time or remote job until you get that ideal offer that you're looking for. So very quickly, I just want to dive into who's hiring and where to find them, and give you a couple of different resources or websites to visit in your current maybe job search, career search, or kind of part-time remote work search. As I mentioned at the beginning, there were a lot of layoffs in government, but usajobs.gov is a really great place to start if you're looking for solid, sort of stable full-time work. I encourage and recommend looking at usajobs.gov or maybe your local county or government website. So, right, Clark County, I'm currently residing in Las Vegas, so Clark County has their own jobs or career site. Where you're living right now, it may have their own job or career site. So we encourage you to look at those state and government options. There's also a system known as Upwork. So Upwork is kind of like a freelance website, which allows you to pick up sort of remote or temporary jobs to sustain that income. For a while, as I mentioned, my partner was out of work, and it was important for us to increase our income. And so I took up a couple of resume and cover letter and interviewing jobs through Upwork to just kind of get that supplemented income. And so if maybe you're in this space and you are skilled at something, you create graphic design works, you also are skilled in resume or cover letter reviewing, maybe you worked in HR and you were laid off and you have these skills and expertise, create an Upwork account and then you can supplement some of that income and find some of those freelance opportunities. Indeed is a great place to look for jobs, right? Indeed is just another job search platform that's specifically geared at allowing you to find a specific job type, filtering it by location, even adding a salary. And so for this slide, I specifically want to touch on job search platforms, Indeed being one of them, but there's a plethora of others. If you go to Google and you simply type in the word jobs into the Google search bar, a little blue bar will pop up. If you click on that blue bar, it'll send you right to a job search function that's directly built into Google, which is awesome because then you can scan the entire internet at one time. It'll pull jobs from Indeed, it'll pull jobs from LinkedIn, it'll pull jobs from individual career pages. And so I definitely recommend checking out some job search platforms. If a lot of this is kind of going in one ear and out the other, that's okay. As I mentioned, that's why Career Services is here. If your career search or career journey has been heavily impacted during this time, I highly recommend scheduling a one-on-one with one of our career coaches so we can walk you through some of these job search systems as well. The last thing I want to touch on, we're going to kind of take a few more breaths. I won't stop talking because I know we're coming up on time, but I'll slow my pace of speech. I'll kind of calm down a little bit, and I'll provide you some really great resources that UNLV is specifically providing you. So first and foremost, as Renee went ahead and dropped the link into the search bar, we do have, or into the chat box, we do have a website specifically geared for our alumni for the Career Services Office. So we offer things like the UNLV Career Toolkit, career coaching, and the last thing, which is known as Handshake. I really want to plug this Handshake concept for just one moment. So Handshake is a job posting platform. The great thing about Handshake is it's specific to colleges and alumni, right? So basically what this means is if an employer selects UNLV, they know they're looking for UNLV students and they know they're looking for UNLV alumni. Using things like Indeed, Glassdoor, Monster.com, the employers haven't said, I want a UNLV affiliate. But in Handshake, they've said, I want a UNLV alumni, I want a UNLV student. And so that's a really great system to add into your toolkit of job search resources. There's a little bit of a process for our alumni. So what I recommend is visiting our website, clicking on the Handshake button as an alumni and creating your account. All you have to do is create your account. It has to be confirmed on our end that you are indeed an alumni, and then you'll be able to search and use Handshake as anyone else. So if you're having some problems with that, I've also provided my contact information. So on the screen, I really want to specifically mention that you can contact me at any time. So send me an email, right? Connect with me on LinkedIn and say, here are the things that I'm struggling with. What should we do moving forward? And we can either schedule a one-on-one appointment, I can converse with you virtually, we can do a virtual video appointment, a phone appointment, or we can just chat on LinkedIn. And so I want you all to know that I'm a resource for you. I'm a friend to you, a fellow alumni of the university. I love UNLV, I bleed scarlet and gray. And so if I can help you in any way as an alumni, I'm happy to do so. So that was a lot. That was an hour almost of banter and chatting, and I hope it was helpful in any sort of way to you all. I know there might be some questions, so I'm glad we have some time, and I'm happy to answer anything. So I don't know how this portion of the Rebel Recharge goes, but questions are welcomed.
Before we get to questions, I just want to say, Kass, what amazing content, and your energy is just so incredible. I lots of resources and things perhaps that we have not heard of before. Some of the things I wrote down in the tips, just the job search platform to make it easier and more executive summary, if you will, with the LinkedIn, which everyone uses more, but like the Upwork, the Indeed, the Handshake, which we have. And just a shout out to Eileen McGarry, who's on our call today too, from Career Services. Appreciate all the work you do and represent for alumni, students, all of us. You make us look good. You make us look great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Stacey. That means a lot, and we're here, right, to support our students. So thank you for introducing me and being here and doing the head nod the entire presentation. You kept me going, so thank you.
Love your energy. Renee, do we have questions from the chat or?
Yep. So we don't have any questions in the chat, but I do have one attendee who's raising her hand. So Janine, if you want to ask your question, I'll go ahead and unmute you.
Well, first off, I want to thank everyone for being here. I am also part of your division over in the Foundation for Board Relations. And this has been a wonderful presentation. I just want to thank Kass for putting it all together. And hello to everyone. Most of my question really is that I lost my attention span and dipped out on the job search system. So I missed that whole slide, and I apologize. But I didn't know if you noted, because I was taking notes, but I didn't know if that particular slide had any URLs that I should have written down.
See, so mostly for the job searching slides, they're just kind of content. So thank you first for your comments, but nothing in specific in terms of resources or links or anything there. But I'm sure, and I know this happened last time, but Renee, we might be able to send out this presentation to our guests if possible.
Yes, so I will be sending the recording of this session to all the attendees. It will also be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So yes, I can also share the slides when I send that email out. It will probably be Monday timeframe. It does take about 5 or so hours for me to get the recording from today's session, but I will send that out first thing Monday morning.
I have 2 fellow alumnus in my immediate family, one of which has a double master's, and she has been laid off by MGM. So I had sent her the link to participate today, but she is not in the session that I can see, but maybe she'll join some of the others. And that would be awesome if I could just send her the zip through. But really, this is such a wonderful part of our division now that this is given. I'm sure I haven't updated anything in a long time. So I may be reaching out to get some assistance in those areas.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to help literally anyone on this call. So I know you, Stacey had mentioned that Eileen McGarry is on this call. She's the executive director of the UNLV Career Services Office. Thanks, boss, for being here today. But we're all happy to help our UNLV family, right? Our alumni, our students, our fellow staff and faculty. So please share my contact information, share anything from today's presentation. And it's been great to be here with you all for a second time. I was here for the January of this year Rebel Recharge right at the tip top of the year. So it was great to come full circle with you all.
Well, I'm constantly impressed with the people who UNLV draws to it and the amount of participation I see, and I'm really grateful. So thank you all.
Thank you. We do have a second person that would like to ask a question. So I have Angela Green, and I'll go ahead and unmute her. Hi, Angela.
Hi, thank you so much, Renee. I appreciate it. My question for you, Kass, first and foremost, awesome presentation. Thank you so much. I was just wondering, I'm somebody who has been quite resistant over the years to social media, and I'm a realist. I know that this is the way of the future, but I do kind of struggle a bit. I'm a very private person. So what I'm wondering is what advice would you have for people like myself who it's almost on an unconscious level, being just private people, that we don't really post or deal much with social media?
Thank you for your question, and thank you for being here. This is a question we get a lot, actually, and I was thinking about addressing it, but I figured the question would come. So I'm glad that you asked, and I'm sure you're not the only person with this question. So I'm also a realist in that sense. I am on social media a lot more than I should be, but there are a lot of people who aren't, right? For example, my direct supervisor, Justin Gomez, he has no social media platform aside from the LinkedIn profile. And so that's my recommendation. For those of you that are very private people or just tend to not be social media enthusiasts, is at least build that bare minimum so that when you are Google searched or when employers are seeking your online presence, there's that professional brand. If you don't feel super comfortable posting a headshot or a profile picture on there, it's not the end of the world, right? You can keep it kind of bare bones, maybe where you've worked in the past, where you received your education, and then just kind of keep it very basic and maybe just written as opposed to having like a photo or anything there. But really, we heavily encourage at least the bare minimum building that LinkedIn so that you're searchable, and you're searchable in a very professional way where you're not exposing any elements of super private information that you want to keep to yourself by not having other social media platforms. But that's kind of the global recommendation these days, is if you don't want social media, kudos to you, 100% valuing your privacy, but kind of having that LinkedIn presence is going to be exponential in your future career and professional search. So I hope that answers your question. And if you wanted to dive deeper, you're welcome to connect with me via email, and I'm happy to kind of dive in a little bit deeper with you.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Kass. It's very helpful. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your question and for being here.
All right. We do not have any other questions other than a lot of comments that are directed or privately messaged to me about how awesome your presentation was and how informative, and your upbeat personality, and everyone just loved you. So I can't thank you enough for joining us today and giving us this presentation. And again, we will be sending this out to everyone and uploading it to our YouTube channel. So thank you again. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Cassie.
Yeah, thank you everyone for being here, and hopefully I'll come for a future Rebel Recharge. Y'all have a great rest of your day, and thanks for the comments.
Thank you, Kass, again. I am so inspired. I am going to get with Renee after this. I've already talked to her and Blake that we want to see how we can promote this and continue the awareness on all social platforms. You know, social media is something that I was on a little bit to Angela's, I think, point. She just mentioned about not doing so. That was me too in the beginning, but one step at a time. You know, it's very practical in the beginning. You're just doing the basics, and you can expand from there, and you get surprised, pleasantly surprised at the responses and how people start reaching out to you in this virtual space. And it's really very helpful and resourceful. And I'm just really proud that Career Services is a part of the Alumni Association, and just the work that they do and the body of work, just it's enormous, just so much. But that you have that energy and that passion and you love what you do, it's not a job. So thank you so very much. I really look forward to moving this forward, moving the needle, and getting everybody into this social space, this social media, including myself, and getting, you know, the hashtags out there and getting people engaged. That's what this is really about. Helping people, but really engaging and helping one another in this time. So you've touched on so much. I just can't thank you enough. Kass, thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Stacy. And again, I appreciate y'all being here. And I just shared my contact information. So if you want to email me, please do. If you want to connect with me on Twitter, please do. And lastly, my LinkedIn as well. So I look forward to connecting with you all. Thanks.
You take care and good luck next week, Tuesday. We'll be rooting for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.